First of all, I love the name, Atom RPG. Could there be a more succinct possible way of communicating what the game is about? Fallout required a subtitle. This is 7 letters. Atom RPG is a Soviet-themed post-apocalyptic indie role-playing game. The project collected $33,000 on Kickstarter, which ain't much, but the game was made primarily in Ukraine and Russia, so the cost of development wasn't very high. If you are wondering how such a diverse team managed to stay together, well, the collective formed prior to the events of 2014. That's their secret. So, what can change the nature of a Soviet man? Certainly not the end of the world, which happened in 1986. The remnants of humanity were sent back to the Dark Ages. We are an agent of Atom, a secret branch of the military that survived the apocalypse. The Rangers of the Mother Waste. The game's events take place less than 2 decades after the war, so there is still plenty of old stuff around. What we do in Atom is explore the Soviet equivalent of Americana, that is, artifacts tied to history, folklore, and everyday life of the Soviet man. A wall carpet, a Zaporozhets car, or maybe a Volga if you're fancy, Georgian food, state-sponsored summer vacation in Crimea, or the Caucasus, bribing a doctor with chocolate. Atom is praised for being true to the classic Fallout gameplay formula, but how authentic is it? We'll be assessing that using what professional theorists call the Fallout Identity Authenticity Score, or Fiasco, an evidence-based method for measuring and quantifying the authenticity of a Fallout-like. Here's how it works. We start with 100 points and count down. If we find a major feature from a classic Fallout game, we subtract 4 or 5 points. For a minor feature, we subtract 1 or 2 points. The lower the score, the more authentic is the game. So let's get to character creation. We are presented with a diverse selection of faces from various Soviet ethnic groups. I choose this guy because he gives off strong misanthrope vibes. The Atom attribute system is a modified version of the special system from Fallout. Dexterity is still the most important stat, as it determines the amount of actions per turn. In fact, it's even more important in this game, since combat can get pretty hard. Strength affects both melee damage and carrying capacity. Certain late-game weapons, like rifles and machine guns, have specific strength requirements. Intellect determines the amount of skill points gained per level, making it the second most crucial stat. The game has content for low intelligence characters, and some items can only benefit those with low intellect. But that's for gimmick playthroughs. Distinctions are the Atom version of Fallout traits, except now there is more than one correct option. I want you to meet Count Boris Shinomontage, a lone wolf with a personality score of 1. Like the ancient saying goes, the Shinomontages have no allies, only servants and enemies. Now, 2 words about skills. The first thing you do is pick a weapon type you want to specialize in. On the medium difficulty, it's viable, and perhaps even optimal, to invest in a melee skill and in a ranged skill at the same time. So I pick martial arts and automatic weapons. What about speechcraft? Yeah, there are tons of speechcraft checks in this, as is convention. Another powerful skill is lockpicking. Many doors that you'd expect to be locked with quest keys are in fact easily opened with modest skill investment. Sneak or stealth is automatic now, and it's basically always on. Technology is about interfacing with old Soviet machines. Tinkering is this game's version of the repair skill. It also determines your chance of success when crafting items. There is a special item creation UI. Certain builds, like the martial artist, greatly benefit from crafting. So as you can see, this is an iteration of the Fallout system, but improved in many ways. Subtracting 5 points from Fiasco. The purpose of Atom is to revive the Soviet motherland and improve the quality of life for all. Atom operatives are well trained and equipped, but few in number. The organization sends expeditions into the wasteland for the purpose of recovering pre-war technology. One such group, led by General Morozov, went missing. The Atom Command sends their top agent, Count Shinomontage, to uncover the fate of our missing comrades. So we press on, heading into the Mother Waste, following the brightest star in the sky. Our first stop is the village of Otradnoye. "Hey there, comrade," says Jan the guard, who kind of looks like Soviet Mr. Beast. "You know, for a radioactive hellhole, Otradnoye is honestly super comfy. There is a clean source of water nearby. The villagers do agriculture, fishing, and animal husbandry. They also have an open-air tavern where the barkeep happens to be a fan of The Lord of the Rings. The place feels lived in and alive thanks to the game's functioning day-night cycle and NPC schedules. There seems to be an element of randomness to it. Every time you visit the village, you'll see different people hanging out at the tavern. Today we got to socialize with this guy in a tinfoil hat with a pig buddy." Tensions grow between the new Kaliningrad Republic and Kaiser's Legion. The game's UI has been given a tasteful update. In addition to the radial menu, skills are assigned to keys. Pressing 1 activates the Look At tool. Pressing 2 activates Lockpick. 3 is stealing. You can try stealing from anyone. You can also freely attack any character. The inventory is modeled after Fallout, and it's basically a list of pictures. However, this version has 2 rows instead of 1, so it's 10 times more usable. We're making good progress. So anyways, Comrade Kovalov explains that a group of criminals living nearby are extorting the villagers. Otradnoye is the shady sands of this game, and if there is shady sands, there also must be raiders. Let's go pay them a visit. This is the world map screen. You can freely travel from location to location. There are random and special encounters, exactly like in the classic game, a critical feature. But then things get kinda weird. The map screen has a map screen within it. It's fully functional. You can use the Soviet Pip-Boy UI to traverse the world. I'm not sure why the game has 2 interfaces that do the same thing. Perhaps the devs thought that the Pip-Boy mode would seem too much like a rip-off, but I enjoy Fallout rip-offs. Take a point for that. In the video, I'll be using my own map travel animations. You hear a dog yelping and humans screaming insults from a distance. This is a special encounter. Once we get rid of the bandits, the dog will join us as a companion. The lone wolf trait normally penalizes you for having followers, but the canine is the exception. Welcome aboard, dog meat. The bandits are holed up in an old factory just a few hours' travel from the village. Before the war, Dan used to be a KGB clerk, a pen pusher. After the bombs fell, he became the leader of the factory gang. Dan is a politician and an intellectual. He wants to bring order to the wasteland, and to achieve this goal, Dan needs to understand the wasteland. So he sends us to a place called the Roaring Forest, a mystery of the wastes, a woodland that makes rattling sounds. What could be the cause? An underground railway, a secret bunker of the Communist Party, mutants, magic, disturbances in the Earth's crust. Our job is to find out why the Roaring Forest roars. Some of the random encounter maps have side areas, like a random map inside a random map. This was also a feature in Fallout 2. A giant monster attacks you. The game has an option to speed up animations. I appreciate this a lot. The turn-based combat is fast and the battles end quickly. Dan is not the first ever person to be intrigued by the mystery of the forest. These guys are self-taught physicists who learned the sciences by reading educational Soviet magazines for teens. The exterior part of the location is very maze-like and dungeony and doesn't resemble a forest much at all. Deeper in the maze, we bump into a wastelander armed with an advanced Vintorez rifle. He is capable of killing us in a single turn. Initially, my strategy was to use aimed strikes to maybe disarm the opponent, but it turns out this is unnecessary. A feature of glove type of weapons is that they have a reasonably high chance to stun the target on hit, which is what happened here. Vintorez fires rare specialized ammunition, so you won't break the game by acquiring it early. We will solve the mystery of the forest by descending under the earth. So it turns out that the shaking is caused by these bug creatures eating the soil. We don't have to kill them to complete Dan's quest, but we might as well do it for XP. The dog ain't much of a damage dealer, but it can take a few hits, which is helpful against the big bug. Fascinating. So it's because of mutants. It was worth it, though, to find out once and for all what's going on, and to put an end to the rumors, however stupid. Dan will eventually have more quests for us, but for now, I want to explore the wasteland some more. In this random encounter, we acquire our first set of armor. Just like in the classic games, 95% of inventory items in Atom resemble real-world objects and are not overtly stylized, and the rest is goofy post-apocalyptic stuff. Now, few know this, but it's possible to mod classic Fallout to have a 2-row inventory like in Atom, but this requires downloading special software by one Mr. Stalin, who had to cut all ties to the Anglophone community because the English Queen would not stop projecting gay thoughts into his brain. Paragon is a trading hub built on the ruins of the old port. It's an independent ersatz state controlling the northern parts of the wasteland. Dan is not a fan of them. The ship is where most of the stores are. There are a lot of charisma checks in Paragon. This place discriminates against our build. The very first person we talk to looks at our personality one face and begins to scream, "Bandits in Paragon! Alert! Alert!" Now, what we have here is an essential Falloutism. You say the wrong thing in the wrong place at the wrong time, and suddenly the whole town is after you. Fiasco indeed. The battles inside the ship are a little too hard for our character. Unfortunately, they also happen to be pretty hard in the container town. This is where we lose the dog. I did win, eventually. A difficult battle. I had no backup save and there was a real risk of us getting stuck. Discovering a secret cannibal society underneath the town made me feel a lot better about the massacre we just committed. The Soviet scout captured by the SS room is way too popular. Should have a talk about expanding it. That's the room. So it's a torture thing in addition to cannibalism. What the fuck is going on in this place? Like the Great Progenitor, the game also features brutal death animations. They are not quite as over the top, but still pretty good. Wiping out Paragon gave us a ton of XP, so it's a good time to showcase the perk system. Every level you get a few of these perk points, and every perk you take increases the price of the next pick. There isn't much deliberation or decision making involved. You pick a branch that complements your playstyle, like heavy armor in our case, and that's basically it. This person is carrying a shield. That's a new mechanic. Shields have high damage threshold, but you can only use them with one-handed weapons. In our travels, we'll frequently encounter trading caravans. Some use vehicles, while others are more low-tech. The caravan masters are willing to buy your crap, and they spawn with a lot of rubles. The centrally located city of Krasnoznamenny is this game's Vegas, this game's Tarant, this game's Balmora. The name means Red Banner, but the devs chose not to translate it in the English version. This is my favorite place in Atom RPG. They have religious cults, armored vehicles, stores selling some of the best equipment in the wasteland, and a movie theater. These are real Soviet movie posters. The one on the left is Star Wars, a galactic western produced in America. The movie theater is just an old TV and a bunch of VHS tapes. A VCR repairman is a well-paid profession in Red Banner. And sure, there is an expansive sewer system underneath the town. Of course it eventually connects to a series of caves. Of course this is a home of the Rat Emperor. And of course he has a journal. He is literate. He is not a rat prole. The creature became smart as it devoured human brains, but it looks like it needed to keep eating brains to stay smart. And I guess the diet eventually got pretty bad because the Emperor became noticeably less articulate over time. There is a Lenin museum in Red Banner. He smells of alcohol, tobacco, and onions. I guess this is just how communists smell. The keeper of the museum shares esoteric Lenin lore. In 1917, the dwellers of Petrograd were terrorized by a giant ant. The creature was the size of an elephant due to the experiments of an eccentric zoology professor. The monster ate all of the buckwheat harvest that year and caused the Povolzhia famine. So Lenin hauled a log into the ant's lair. He then carved it into a steak and placed the creature's favorite food, buckwheat porridge, right on the very tip. So when the hungry ant went for the porridge, it impaled itself on the steak. And that's what scientific communism is all about. The Lenin body display is a real thing, by the way. You can see his body, in the Red Square Mausoleum. I've been there. I've seen Lenin in real life. The main quest wants us to make contact with the man named Fidel, an Atom operative embedded in the community. He recommends we do errands for the locals to build trust. A sensible advice. The authorities hire us to hunt down a gang near the abandoned dacha settlement called Red Fighter. After selling our Paragon loot, we became the Witcher of the Wasteland, carrying a Vinterez rifle, an AKSU, and a machine gun, different tools for different tasks. This is not even saying anything about our vast arsenal of pharmacological enhancements. Once we clear out the giant spiders, we get to talk to the last remaining resident of this place. Hexogen is a Soviet writer and a bunny rabbit breeding enthusiast. A man's history is not like a bread ration during the siege of Leningrad, and therefore I ain't sharing it. But I'll tell you one thing, along with such textual gigolos as Gorky and Bedny, I, the elderly writer Trudov, born Romanov, fathered Soviet literature in the bedroom of young socialism. He is a potential follower. Hexogen, or Trudov, was a writer even before the war. World War II, that is. In 1941, he wrote a collection of poems praising Germany. Supposedly, he wanted to convince the Germans to retreat, but instead, A.A. Vlasov went over to their side, allegedly under the impression of Trudov's poems. I've never played Atom with companions, and it seems this playstyle could be quite fun if you commit to it. In the classic Fallout games, your equipment progression is just as important. In fact, it's arguably more important than your level progression, and it's the same in Atom. Once you hit level 9 or 10 and get an AK, you should be able to handle almost anything on the world map. Another quality this game shares with Fallout 2 is its fondness for wacky content. Since you are no mutant, how about joining the Red Guard of Lenin, comrade? The Red Guard will gladly accept a crazed fanatic such as yourself. The commissar sends us to a place called the Scrapyard, where a bunch of mutants have stolen a statue of Great Lenin. We surrounded them. Time to show these freaks that the progressive humanity will never accept their degeneracy and money-grabbing attitude towards Comrade Lenin's relics. The Scrapyard is a mutant village with around 25 residents. We have 15 or so Red Guards divided into 3 strike teams, attacking the mutants from multiple directions. Lenin is our esoteric leader. Mutants are the personification of ugly wound caused to our world by nuclear war. Sure, there are peaceful ways of resolving this conflict, but why miss out on one of the biggest battles in the game? Our reward is a deep sense of satisfaction from serving big communism. And also this thing. The pride of the Soviet automobile industry, Gaz SG-1 Pobeda, a fictional sports car variant of this. Repairing the car requires several technology checks. The vehicle is fast, has cool headlights, and makes random encounters easier to avoid. It also has a trunk. Unfortunately, we won't be able to take it to other world maps. Yes, there are other world maps. You are akin to the angels of hammer and sickle. I grant upon you my loyal blade, the Lenin's Wrath. A chainsaw/art piece covered in quotes from the Communist Manifesto. So it's like a Ripper, but cool. We have unfinished business back in Paragon. I was hoping the locals had calmed down by now so that I could inform them about the Soviet scout torture room. Alas, war never changes, it would seem. Is big communism even achievable? 7,000 rubles. Thank you for your donation to the Red Guard, capitalist. Uh-oh. Vladimir Ilyich, we have a problem. Hey, fuckface. Me and the boys have been looking for you since your first major blunder. We are surrounded by heavily armed mercenaries, some equipped with anti-material rifles. There is absolutely no chance of winning this, or even surviving a single turn. This encounter seems unavoidable. I thought maybe I'd done fucked up. But then, upon further research, it seems the mercs only attack at night. So, if we travel during the day, we are safe. Naturally, the next area we stumble upon turns out to be a slaver outpost. The bird has flown straight into our net. Seems we're going to have some fun. I feel somewhat emasculated after the merc encounter, and I need to take it out on someone. Therapeutic. There is a thieves' guild in the sewers underneath Red Banner, one of many criminal organizations in this game. In order to get access to the guild, we need to learn the thieves' language. This can be done by reading a book off a shelf in Otradnoye, easily missable content. And indeed, this appears to be a faithful translation of the war terminology, which is a real thing. Let's see if they have rooster. No rooster. Is there a petuch? No petuch. So, this is a sanitized version. In order to progress the main quest, you have to discover this location, Bunker 317, an old Soviet military and research installation, a place to look for the lost atom expedition. The entrance to the facility is locked, but fortunately there is a group of wastelanders with trustworthy faces who can open the door for us if we're brave enough to scout the facility on their behalf. Looks like the Atom crew dispatched most of the creatures. Not that giant ants are very dangerous. And here is a Soviet security robot. It's inactive and there is not much we can do with it. If the Sierra Army Depot was so good, how come there is no Sierra Army Depot 2? The individual who lived here was a foreign music enthusiast. Not sure if such a decadent person can be trusted. Looks like the scientists were suffering from bad dreams. You close your eyes and voices in your head start talking in a language you don't understand. Going by their advanced armor, the bodies must belong to the members of the Atom expedition. One of them has a strange talisman resembling a mushroom. What the hell is this thing? The surface world has been destroyed, and now I must destroy the thing that we have brought to life. Doesn't look like she succeeded. Something was stored here until recently. The Wastelanders who opened the door for us turned out to be not good people at all. They say they'll let us go if we surrender our entire inventory. Warfare never changes. What if the real villain of the dungeon weren't the monsters, but human greed? So the mushroom pendant. I swear I've seen something mushroom-themed in Red Banner. Oh yeah, the Mycelium Society. The people, regardless of our differences, must be made to understand that we are all part of a single organism, the humankind. Oh, I get it.
Please.
It's possible to join the organization and do quests for them, but it seems our reputation precedes us. No member of the society wants to vouch for me. Thankfully, this is a Fallout-like, so a problem can be approached in different ways. After asking around, we learned that armed groups have been entering and leaving the Mycelium building at night. One such group was seen heading for the mountain pass of Woes. The location can be accessed via the lakeside community of Fogelevka, a comfy town surrounded by a wooden palisade. Caravans depart from here heading south to the mountains. The Atom Wasteland doesn't appear to be based on a specific location, but the mountains are almost certainly the Caucasus Mountains. You are looking at the new regional map. It's smaller than the main wasteland, but it comes with its own set of random and special encounters, like this destroyed Soviet vehicle convoy, the result of active combat preceding the nuclear exchange. It's possible to disarm the unexploded Hellfire missile via a technology check. Fuck you, capitalists. I'm still fighting the war. There are new creatures. Each one of these spawns another instance of itself if you fail to kill it in one turn. They are infinite XP bugs. Get it? I'm funny. The northern mountain hides another Soviet installation. We have Black Mesa at home. Blue Wing, personal rooms, barracks, mess hall. This is where we are introduced to this game's take on the Vault experiments. Korov still believes we haven't killed each other because of solidarity and love for the collective. What a fool, that communist. The reason we are so peaceful and happy even after the world went to shit is because of our unwanted child, the little god we created in the land of scientific communism. The paranoia Skvortsov spreads around isn't spontaneous mental illness. It's the product of his immunity to our child's mental influence. We will die free men. Green Wing, Biolabs. The plants are ranged attackers with weak defenses. Bloodroots are dangerous melee opponents. It's like the Green Vault from Vegas or the Environmental Protection Agency, a location cut from Fallout 2. Red Wing, Anomalous Materials. Project V2. Goal: adapting popular crops for underground growth. Project Stakhanovite. Goal: designing a combat unit capable of survival without food, water, and sleep. They were making super soldiers. Results: mixed. Test subjects lack control. Lifespan 2-3 days, far too short for practical use. Project Mycelium. Goal: study of the fungal biomass that was accidentally discovered during Project Stakhanovite. Results: possible psychological damage to staff. The mass may or may not have a high level of intellect. Beyond the door is a group of heavily armed Mycelium cultists. One of them is a member of Atom. He knows us by name. Count Boris Shinomontage? Is that you? Most of Atom's top brass are already members of Mycelium. Atom is doing good work, but each year our fear of others makes us weaker. Mycelium operates openly. We were sent here by the Scientific Society in Red Banner to evacuate a certain thing. Listen, Don't take it personally, but since you are not one of us... Combat tip. It costs 4 action points to open your inventory. Once you do, you can reload your weapon and use an unlimited number of stim packs at no additional cost, just like in Fallout. Specializing in automatic weapons was a good decision. This individual is directly controlled by the shroom, the creature behind him. Mycelium says that physical violence is against its nature. It tried to help people in the bunker, to calm them down, but it seems that some people, like Skvortsov, are immune to its influence. We be doing a little commentary on authoritarian communism, which is fine, and it suits the game well. Back to the Mother Waste, back to Red Banner. On July 29, the wicked right-wing socialist revolutionary Fanny Royd, aka Kaplan, attacked our dear father, Comrade Lenin. Without warning, she stabbed Lenin in his heart with a knife covered in lethal poison. But Lenin kept his party membership card right over his heart, so when the knife of the wicked right-wing socialist revolutionary Fanny Royd, better known as Kaplan, stuck Lenin, it bounced off the card and hit her right in the eye, causing her to immediately dissolve in a puddle of green bubbling mud. So the Mycelium Society collects mushroom samples left in the old labs. Another one of their expeditions traveled to a place called the Dead City, an urban boneyard, a ruin of an old metropolis accessible by boat. You just wasted your time. There is nothing good in the Dead City. Nothing at all. The man gives us a brief tour of the place. Radioactive dust clouds. Bandits. Well, that's a problem we know how to deal with. And then there are shadows, mutated residents of the metropolis. They have an annoying reach attack that frequently lands critical hits. However, if you stand right next to them, their melee slap does almost no damage. Sure, there is a new overworld map. Instead of borrowing ideas from Fallout 2, we are now borrowing from Stalker and Metro, which were borrowing ideas from Fallout 2. The explorers of the ruined city are called Stalkers. Their outpost is an old metro station. Dead City is a fictional place, but the stations seem to be modeled after the Moscow Metro. If you pass a personality check, this guy gives you a special serum that provides a one-time attribute boost. These are rare and precious, like in the classics. The Stalker station is kinda nice. It's basically a small town with shops and services, and the old train cars have been turned into houses. The endgame features not one, but 2 world maps, the city above and the tunnels below. The random encounter table of the underworld is completely different. You stumble upon Stalkers fighting terrible fire-breathing demons. So that's new. Throughout the game, you've been gathering a ton of consumables, and this is where you'll finally use them all. Not all tunnel dwellers are bad. Here is the Dead City version of a trading caravan. I love it. Despite the name, the Bandit Station is another relatively hospitable place in the Dead City. Our eventual destination, the Research Institute, can be accessed from below or above ground. In order to do the latter, you need to hire an engineer here at the Bandit Station to clear a path. God does not play dice. Before confronting the cult, it makes sense to acquire the best armor in the game, which you do in the Hellgate, a demon-infested abandoned station at the edge of the map. It seems the bomb that hit the city opened a figurative and a literal portal to hell. There are too many demons to fight head-on, but if we position ourselves next to the rail access ladder, the creatures will have to attack one at a time, making the incoming damage more manageable. This is Wolf the Stalker, who sacrificed himself to seal the chasm the demons were invading the metro from. On his body, we'll find some of the best equipment in Atom Arpoger, combat armor, which is also iconic in Fallout, and a PK machine gun, a weapon with strength requirements so high we can only use it while on drugs. So the Institute. No doubt this is where the cultists were headed. This place was a Soviet military AI lab. Beep beep, I'm afraid I can't let you do that, comrade. Beep bop, I am Vil A, Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, atomic emissions-based AI with widened machine logic. Note, the mechanical sounds, beep beep bop, were introduced into Vil A's speech patterns for humorous effect and to differentiate between Vil A and human speech. Beep bop. Oh, remember that thing? Alert! Unidentified intruder in the Vil A central core. All perpetrators will be exterminated. But what about the 3 laws of robotics? Beep bop, literary works do not affect Vil A behavior. Where whataboutism failed, Heckler and Koch will succeed. And here are the cultists. Like in the classics, it's a good idea to pre-buff with combat drugs before a major battle. 3 bursts is all it took. Thanks, Wolf. On one of the bodies is an access code for the mycelium building back in red. Have you noticed that there isn't a single commie block in this game? The commandos surrounding the building are our colleagues from Atom. Finally they showed up. I am playing the English version and the translation in this bit is almost incoherent. The mycelium agents who infiltrated Atom were arrested. It seems they were detected by accident. The mushroom building is empty and the commander casually suggests the idea of taking over Red Banner. We can agree or disagree, either way they leave. The building is not empty. I never actually used the access code we found in Dead City. All the doors, even the main quest ones, were easy to open with lockpicks. So, were the expeditions optional? Even now, the cultists refuse to attack us first, and they always give us every opportunity to back down. In fact, the only violent person in Mycelium was the Atom member. Secrecy level phosphorus. The organization is trying to construct a device that will transmit the telepathic signal of the progenitor mushroom as a radio wave, indoctrinating the wasteland into the idea of unity.
Please.
Mycelium is a cultural reference to the 1991 television broadcast in which the musician Sergei Kuryokhin informed the Soviet people that according to the latest evidence-based science, Vladimir Ilyich Lenin was in fact an anthropomorphic mushroom and a radio wave. You can find a subtitled video on YouTube. The game extrapolated the humorous bit into a science fiction story. Atom seems to have more referential content than Fallout 2. Yes, I'm Morozov, but I'm also the creature you see behind Morozov's back. And all these people around Morozov are me as well. The general discovered this place not long after the bombs fell. Red Banner is a tiny provincial town of no importance, a perfect place for secret government experiments. This is where they created the mushroom. This is its birthplace. The mycelium organism gathered data from Soviet computers. It saw the inner workings of the universe, endless possibilities. One such possibility grew more probable each year. The asteroid TB-146 is getting closer and closer to Earth. You can see it with the naked eye. It even has a folk name, the Hesperus star. The asteroid has a radius of 20 kilometers. It will wipe out 95% of all life on Earth. We only have a few decades before it impacts the planet. But war never changes, and the flaws of humanity will prevent civilization from being rebuilt in time. What can change the nature of a Soviet man? Mycelium, one mind, unity. We can choose to side with the shroom, or we can persuade it with facts and logic to give up its plans. As we've seen in the facility in the mountain pass, some individuals, like the scientist Skvortsov, are resistant to telepathic influence and will never accept losing their autonomy. They will agitate others and create conflict. And Mycelium hates this. The shroom is genuinely conflict-averse. That does not make two of us. I think I'm gonna vomit. Morozov's life can be saved if you convince the mushroom to let him go. My autonomy is not a bread ration during the siege of Leningrad, and therefore I ain't sharing it. The Hesperus star is real.
Remnants of the Mycelium Society.
The ending slides. Let's just say I probably won't be importing this character into the sequel.
Please.
The musician Sergei Kuryokhin became a nutsball. Atom team are working on a fantasy game which was successfully kickstarted not that long ago. Lenin's body is still on display in the mausoleum. Google review summary 4.4 stars. So Atom Arpuger, how does it compare to other games in its weight class? I liked it more than Wasteland 2, but less than The Age of Decadence, which is one of my all-time favorites. The most authentic Fallout likes were made on the classic engine, but Atom might be the next best thing. We ended up with very respectable fiasco. Was there anything that didn't work? Yes, a number of things actually, and we'll talk about them after the Patreon credits. Support this show on Patreon. We'll gladly accept a crazed fanatic such as yourself. These videos were made possible by our patrons, including Jim Lawrence, Mada Pasta, Dmitry Yu. I am commencing an occupation of the patron credits in solidarity with the martyrs of the Eve Divine Cybermancy Brigade. Snafu, Azazel and Baneful the Doggo, taking a hit of my penny gecko. Ray Ners, Front Stab, Billy Strayhorn, 1967 Ford Mustang, Ezek Tsarev, C6, Mopo, Celtic, a two-room apartment in Bobruisk, Belarus, Yuri Solodovnichenko, Maciej V, Tony Spagoni, Ganso Bomber Motherfucker, Ilya Rubin, Dark Butt Pumpkin, E-Girl 666, I Feed My Parrot Chicken, and Frog. So, let's talk about some things that didn't work. The game's soundtrack consists of 65 files. Among them, there are 4 or maybe 5 tracks with strong identities, and the rest is generic ambient. The music for the most social place in the wasteland is not very different from the track for the deadliest dungeon. Needless to say, this is no Mark Morgan. The fan games also have much better soundtracks. Atom has issues with pacing. It's not actually that bad. The introduction of the combat speed slider and the proliferation of solid-state drives improved this game a lot. Still, basically all random encounter maps are much bigger than they need to be. The world map travel speed is too slow, especially in the metro. Another interesting idiosyncrasy of Atom is that the developers appear to have rejected the idea of having generic characters. Every person you meet has a lot to say about their individual lore. It's a bad idea to overwhelm the player with petty exposition, especially early in the game. We have a technique for NPCs that require some characterization, but not too much. It's called bark dialogue. It's this. The game uses barks barely ever. However, it needs to be said that I love this font choice. It's very Fallout-like. Please receive an extra point. And then there are general production issues. I mean, this game made $33,000 on Kickstarter. There's only so much you can do with this money. All Soviet facilities are built out of the same assets. We fight more or less the same group of cultists 4 times in the game. There are no proper boss fights. And since there are no boss fights, there are no ultra-violent boss death animations. That's a shame. They should have made Morozov drive an experimental Soviet mech suit or something. There are Warhammer references ideas in this. They could have turned him into a communist dreadnought. And yeah, the game doesn't have power armor. But I know that this was addressed in Grad, the standalone expansion/sequel. We'll be resuming the countdown once I eventually get to covering that game. The next video, however, is a very special project. See you in a month.